I have played a chunk of Diablo 3. I'm by no means like a hardcore player, even of these types of games usually. My experience with them usually is to play them with friends, maybe put in 50 to 100 hours, but I'm not putting thousands in, okay, just to be completely transparent. A lot of people are very concerned with the end game. End game for me in games like this is actually not like where I'm most interested, because usually by the time I get over 100 hours, I'm playing a game just for enjoyment. And because I have to play so many games for the channel and for reviews and stuff, I usually struggle to find games that I can really pour that much time into. So if it hooks me, it's going to be the one game for like a 2-3 year period that I'm pouring that much time into. I'm not the type of person to play like, oh yeah, I've put 3,000 hours into Path of Exile, and then 4,000 into Diablo 3, and then Diablo 4, I just hit 2,000 hours. I'm not going to be that kind of guy. So I guess you could consider me a more casual player of these types of games. However, when I tried the Diablo 4 beta, I thought it was fire. I thought it was actually pretty cool. And frankly, I've heard a bunch of like discourse online of people being like, oh, it's not that good. Oh, it's too heavily monetized. There was also a lot of other people. I saw, we'll maybe pull it up. Force Gaming, he put out his review and immediately like 500 dislikes on the video. Like a mob of people came in to dislike it because he liked the game. Like there are, for some reason, Diablo 4 haters who just are like, oh, it's not real Diablo. It's not like the old stuff for some reason. I don't understand it. If somebody in chat could explain to me why some people are hating on it, I would greatly appreciate it, because I have no idea. I honestly don't understand it. And I even tried to look it up. I was like, what are people's problems with it? Am I missing something? Why do people not like it? And I haven't been able to figure it out. So I don't know if it's just people hating and poo-pooing on it for fun or what. There's a bunch of idiots on Reddit somewhere with a mission to poo-poo on the game because they wanted it to be more like Diablo 2. I guess help me understand, what is the difference between this and Diablo 2? Because again, I've never played Diablo 2 and never played Diablo 1. I'm not hardcore into action RPGs like this. So I'm not sure what that means. Do they mean just more complicated, more hardcore? Maybe. I guess. Some people just don't like Blizzard. I guess that would make sense. It just blows my mind how people can have so much free time to not just like be fans of stuff, but to be like committed haters of stuff. Like they don't play Diablo 4, but they're going to go around and click on all the video reviews for the game and just downvote and leave nasty comments. It's amazing to me. Like, do you seriously have nothing else to do with your life? Like, it's honest. And I'm saying this as a gaming YouTuber, okay? Like, a lot of people probably would say the same thing about me and what I spend my time doing. But still, goddamn, that should tell you. Scared Senseless, thank you for becoming a member, by the way. Also, everybody, members only streams. We're back doing them. My plan is to do another one tomorrow. So if you are not a member, consider joining, because you can join our members only streams, which are much more chill, where we get to just kind of hang out, relax, not worry about being so strict on the schedule and stuff. Get to tell you some stories that I might not feel comfortable telling on regular streams. It's just a good time, you know? It's a really good time. Man, I don't have time to get all my work done, let alone be a hater. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This is my first Diablo. I played both betas and loved it. The crossplay and co-op really sold me and my pals. Very excited to jump in. Yeah, Dean, totally agree. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What's the appeal behind Diablo games anyway? I tried playing Diablo 3 for a bit, but couldn't get myself into it. Found it really repetitive. Am I missing something? No, it is repetitive. It is an action RPG through and through. The way it's been described to me, my buddy Kayla, my best bud from high school, who just had his baby, by the way. His wife had you get what I mean. Crispy, by the way, thank you for becoming a member. Boom. He told me when I was like, I don't know if I want to get into Diablo 3 in the lead up to Diablo 4. He was like, you got to understand, man, these games are just about making numbers bigger, and that's what makes them fun. He's like, you start dealing 4 damage in a hit, and by the time you have 100 hours in, you're dealing 32,000 damage per hit, and after another 100 hours or another 1,000 hours, you're dealing hundreds of thousands of damage per hit. He's like, the number gets bigger, and that's what makes it fun, is eventually it just gets crazy, and you get all the gold stuff, and everything's lined up perfectly, and it just looks great. And, you know, you have the max rolls, because some items, what they call rolls are basically like, if you have an item that's level 100, say, which is, I believe, max level, as is. But if you have a level 100 item, and then you that spawned while exploring the world or defeating a boss or something, it has a roll, so it randomly selects between a certain range of possible values for its like potency, if it has an effect on it, for its DPS, for its armor, whatever it is. And so if you're the type of person who likes action RPGs, you're going to be the one that's constantly trying to upgrade it, get the better and better stuff, grind it up, try to get better and better rolls.
Finely tuned combat, extensive build options, and stellar graphics are all among the most impressive in the genre, and its endgame activities are shockingly well thought out. A weak story and some irritating bugs do occasionally throw a wet blanket over the fires of hell, but the 80 hours I've spent in Sanctuary have still been overwhelmingly positive, and even after all that demon slaying, I'm excited to play a whole lot more.
Break the chains. And this...
They had the game for 9 days, so the review period was about 9 days. And then they shut off review servers. So 80 hours in 9 days. That to me is, I mean, to me, that's a lot. I mean, that's like 8 hours a day minimum, but I know for some people they can go hard. My buddy Michael, he works a job where he's on for like a week and then off for a week. And, you know, so he has one of those schedules. But then his wife works regular 9 to 5. So he will, like, for 5 days straight, he has the ability to just go into full grind mode and lose dozens upon dozens upon dozens of hours. Honestly, like, if I play a game for 2 hours, I have to get up, I have to walk around. I'm not good at the grind. Because I get antsy. I want to go get up and move, and like I just can't really do that. But I'm kind of envious because some people are able to just go. Like Asmongold, who we're going to look at in a minute, he's able to just stream and play the same game for 16 hours straight. You know? It's crazy. What does he do for work? I don't know if he wants me saying specifically, but he's in law enforcement, basically. So, yeah. He's not got it yet, Luke. Asmongold. Yeah, no, we're gonna look at his thoughts on the end game, because if anybody knows these types of games, it's the king of the neckbeards, Asmongold. Praise be. Asmongold has nothing better to do. I mean, honestly though, like, this is my job. If I wanted to, like, I could justify to myself playing 12 hours of Tears of the Kingdom straight. I could justify playing 10 hours straight of Diablo 4 for a review or something. I could justify it, and it's like, yeah, no, it's for work. This is what I'm doing. I'll get the video out. We'll make money from the video, so this is part of it. We'll stream it, so I'll hopefully make some money through that. But that's what we do. However, my brain doesn't let me do it. The one time when I can is when I have one of those like good old Colorado Rocky Mountain High edibles. And those things, like the kind that just make you feel like you weigh 1,000 pounds and you just melt into your chair. So like I still have the mental thing where I'm antsy and I want to get up and I want to move, but I'm like, but my body now weighs 6,000 pounds. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand up properly. So I guess I should just stay here.
Diablo 4 largely succeeds at modernizing the depths of hell enough to finally match its more recent ARPG peers, like Path of Exile or Lost Ark. You and up to 3 friends are once again sent on an endless string of exciting dungeon crawls where mastering your abilities and optimizing your DPS are generally more important than an engaging story or explaining the insane diarrhea of flickering lights that currently occupies the screen. Running dungeons once again captures that enjoyable, compelling loop of killing hordes of enemies, completing objectives, and downing bosses. And doing side quests to learn more about the world's lore is usually a very good time too.
I don't know what... Did he say what he was playing this on? I thought this was on PC. Reviewed on Xbox Series X. Okay, he's playing this on console. Because it looks... I think it's also how he encoded. Like, I don't know what this bitrate is. But I also have the NVIDIA... like, control panel thing turned on. I have the AI 40 series, whatever, upscaling tech turned on. Video image setting. Yeah, super resolution. I turned that on, which usually helps. But in this case, I think it might just be making it look muddy. Let me try turning it off.
Gone are the days of WWE-like voice performances and dreadfully cheesy dialogue.
Maybe that's why people are upset. People miss the WWE dialogue. People are like, oh, I liked it when it was cringy. Honestly, some games just work better with the cringy dialogue. It's almost like it's endearing. It's like a B grade movie, a B movie. It's bad, but it's so bad it's good. You know? Resident Evil. Oh, multiple people are saying Resident Evil. Watch out, Crimson might be in here. Crimson might flip. Unless Crimson agrees that it's bad voice. I don't know. Like the UFO game, the voice acting was so funny. Yeah, like it's not great voice acting, but it's almost like quirky enough that it's okay, you know? It's weird. I agree. Okay, well let's try shifting here. Let's see what Force Gaming thought. He had a review code. Let's see what's happening.
It's time to review Diablo 4. So I want to get a couple of key things out of the way before we jump into things. Number one, what I played was a full review build, which means it included the entire game, everything content-wise that you can expect to see at release, minus any likely day one patches, and minus the cash shop, which I will get to, don't worry. Number two, I leveled up as a sorcerer, playing through the entire campaign. I progressed into endgame and spent about half of my total playtime checking out those systems, which include the Nightmare Dungeons, Helltides, Whispers, Fields of Hatred, World Bosses, and the Capstone Dungeons. And number three, we only had 9 days to play, after which they shut down the servers and deleted everything. So for that reason, no, I didn't max out my character because that will take hundreds of hours. But I did go through all of the paces. I was grinding for gear, bouncing between every activity, and progressing the Paragon board, while continuously taking on harder challenges. So I saw what the endgame...
Yeah, already his encoding is way better. I love it. This is what we were referring to earlier with like the endgame stuff. To play Diablo, I mean, what do you guys think? Diablo 3, how long does it take you to like get to the end game? Because how these games work is that there's a core game where you're kind of like leveling up, you get your basic build out and all your abilities and stuff, and then you get to the point where you shift into the end game where it goes into full grind mode. And that's where some people will lose it and lose interest. And honestly, I think that that's okay. I don't think you need to spend thousands of hours in these games grinding to still enjoy them. It's similar to Monster Hunter. I don't know if any of you guys are like hardcore into Monster Hunter, but in Monster Hunter, you can play through the campaign and hunt all of the big monsters and do all the bits and bops, all of the master, missions and stuff, and high rank stuff. And then you shift into an end game mode where you can go back through and basically repeat all of those hunts, but you're hunting for gems now, and you're hunting for the crafting materials to get all of the armor that you are wanting, the different armor sets to min-max your build and all of this. And for me, I didn't grind the gems. I wasn't that interested in the attack gems or anything like that. I was interested in getting through the campaign, enjoying it, and then once I started to feel like, hey, this is getting a little old, I was going to put it down and move on. And frankly, I love Monster Hunter World, and I didn't go and grind out the thousands of hours, right? But some people do, and they love those games even more. So if you're the type of person who wants to spend thousands of hours grinding in Diablo, you can do that and you can have a good time, just like you can grind thousands of hours in Monster Hunter. Will it be repetitive? Yeah, of course. Of course it will. However, if you really, really enjoy the core game, That's exactly what it's designed for. But if you can spend 60 hours, like some people are saying in chat, like for Diablo 3 Modern, about 60 hours to reach the end game, then like if you're good after 60 hours and you want to just put the game down, 60 hours is a good amount of time. Maybe you do that. Maybe you reach 60 hours, you max level your character, and you're like, I want to try a necromancer build, and you swap and you try that, and it's almost like a whole new game with a different character, all different abilities, and you can shift all that through. So you could realistically spend hundreds and hundreds of hours playing something like Diablo 3 or probably Diablo 4, just swapping out character builds and stuff, without having to engage with the end game. So don't assume that these games are going to be just one big end game, one massive grind. They're all a little grindy at their core, because that's just what ARPGs are. However, it doesn't have to be that grind fest if you don't want it to be. You can still get a ton of mileage out of these games without doing that.
But I did go through all of the paces. I was grinding for gear, bouncing between every activity, and progressing the Paragon board while continuously taking on harder challenges. So I saw what the end game consists of and got a good feel for the gameplay loop, or basically what it is we'll be doing on a regular basis. So between this review build, the various beta tests, and previews from last year, I've played over 100 hours of Diablo 4 at this point, and 100 hours is a good chunk of time. But also, for any ARPG, loot game, or MMO, it's closer to 0 hours than the total number of hours people tend to spend with these kind of games. The point of which is to say, just like any other live service game, just like with an MMO, I can't really with full confidence tell you exactly how Diablo 4 is going to feel 3, 6, or 12 months down the road, because we're not...
It's got to be so freaking stressful to develop a game like this, not knowing, like, I'm sure they have an idea, but you don't know in 6 months what the community is going to be thinking or doing. Like, you can give them world bosses, you can give them high level bosses, you can give them all this dynamic gear and these systems that constantly evolve with the player. But really, after somebody spent 1,000 hours in your game, they probably know it just as well as the devs do. I mean, come on. If you've never read some of these like online forum posts, like there are wild amounts of math, like calculations, spreadsheets and stuff that go into this. Let me see if I can find, I saw one that was an actual Excel spreadsheet that was crazy. Oh, this might be it. Look at this. Boop, boop, share screen. There we go. This is a spreadsheet breaking down all of the different play styles and things that they have calculated out on how to do this. I don't even know really what I'm looking at. But like there are some mad like levels of effort that people go to calculate all of these things. This the Haven, solo, GPU, mid-tier, top tier, IC build support tier, and then they build out all this so they show you exactly how to level, what to build out and all this, which gems to equip, and like it's insane what some of these guys go for. So this almost is like a sub game within the game where the community works together to min-max the entire thing. The community comes together to do the math and the spreadsheets and stuff to figure out what is the best build for Necromancer, for a Season 24 beginner build, or for a high tier Bone Spear build. Oh yeah, that sounds fun. I want to play with that. You pull this up and it's a full guide to it. And this is something like after years and years and years of Diablo 3, they've basically solved the game, right? Like they figured it out. For Diablo 4, this process basically has to start all over again, which is madness. So, it's wild, the level of attention to detail, the data mining, the calculations, the math and stuff that goes into these people solving this. But some people look at this and they say, I don't get it. Well, I would want to build this myself. I'd want to figure this out myself. Why would I use a guide? But frankly, it can be kind of cool to go in after 1,000 hours. And if you're like, hey, I want to build out a character with this build archetype. And then you go and you start grinding for all of this equipment until you get it. That right there is probably going to take you 50 hours, 100 hours. I have no idea. But especially with all the gems in here and all this stuff for your cube, like it's going to get pretty insane. And this is how people end up spending thousands of hours in these games. Yeah, it's wild. I respect the grind. Yeah, you gotta. A lot of this ends up on a website called Maxroll. Let's look up Maxroll. Diablo 4. So all of this stuff is Chain Lightning Sorcerer. Yeah, all sorts of explanations of which abilities, which things. Wow, which skill points to put where. This is all a breakdown of how to build a Chain Lightning Sorcerer build. So if you're taking Diablo 4 seriously and you want to min-max, like you're building with this. This is wild. Absolutely crazy. So, point is, ARPG players are built different. Okay? It's just a different community. And if you look at that and that looks hella daunting, don't be weirded out. That's honestly probably reasonable that you are weirded out by that, and that seems crazy. However, it like nobody is an expert in all of that. You're usually like choosing one or two build or archetypes to follow. What I did for Monster Hunter World is like I wanted to use dual blades, so I was like hyper aggressive dual blade build, and I found one, and so I went and I had to hunt the Odagron like 100 times to get all the stuff and the plates and stuff I needed to craft all the armor and then all the upgrades, and then so I kind of looked at the build. Oh, this build or this armor set's the best. This item is the best to have on me for this effect. And so I used that as a jumping off point, and then I figured out the rest kind of myself. However, some people will follow those guides to a T. Others will just kind of broadly figure it out. Hey, dual blade brother, you avoided the longsword weeb trap. I knew I liked you, Luke. Yeah, I do dual blades, or I'll do the great sword, the really slow great sword. I find very satisfying to use. Insect glaive, I've never gotten the hang of it. My buddy Corey, who got me into Monster Hunter, he uses the insect glaive, and he is a master with that thing. It's crazy. Zips around like a madman. Bowguns, hammer build, or GTFO. People who provide guides like that in any game are lifesavers. I can't imagine being a gamer 2-3 decades ago. Well, 2-3 decades ago, it was all published through like magazines and stuff. Like these people have always been there, but now they just have like these forums to go to, and so instead of magazines or like really obscure forums online, they are on big official websites, which is pretty cool. Insect glaive is hard to learn, incredible to master. Oh yeah, for sure, without a doubt.
There yet, and a lot of that is going to hinge on the quality of their regular quarterly updates or their seasons. But I do have an idea of how much time I am likely to spend with the base game, judging off of the amount of content that's here at release, the level of difficulty, and the progression systems currently in place. And how much time is that? Well, let's talk a bit about the game first. So I'm not going to bore you with all the basics. This is an ARPG. It's a Diablo game. You likely know what to expect and how it starts. We pick from one of 5 classes, the Necro, Barb, Sorc, Druid, and Rogue, and there's a bit of character customization. Then you select your mode, normal or hardcore, and finally you pick the difficulty, which in most cases my advice will be to start with World Tier 1, unless you begin 2-shotting packs of elites, or if you just want to bump up the difficulty for the fun of the added challenge. Lastly, you name your character.
I feel bad. We played Diablo 3 like a month ago. We loaded up, me and my college roommates from back in the day, and Caleb, the same Caleb that just had his baby. He joined us, and we decided to play like hardcore, where if you don't know what that is, basically your hero will die permanently if they die. You'll lose all progress, they're gone. He died in like 20 minutes. And then we're like, it's okay, you'll catch up real quick. Just come with us, and then you'll get the passive XP and stuff. Came with us. We go into the next like dungeon, start fighting the boss. 45 minutes goes by. He dies again. And then we play for another hour, and then he dies again. I felt bad. He just kept dying, so he kept resetting while we're getting level 10, level 20, level 30. Like we started really making progress. I don't think we got to level 30. It was like maybe 20, but he just kept dying. And then like, so he couldn't fight, he would get one-shotted by everything we were fighting. And so he had to just come into the rooms with us and stand in the back corner to get the passive XP for basically participating. And so the poor guy is just like running around following us, praying to God he doesn't get hit by some passive ranged attack or something. I felt a little bad. But I think it's because he plays usually tanks. And I think he didn't have the character built out in the exact right way. So when he went in and just started eating damage, he got smushed. And then after that, once you're under leveled, you can't tank anymore. That's not how tanking works. So he kept trying to tank after being under leveled and then kept dying and kept dying and kept dying. And then eventually he just got so out of his league that he just couldn't keep up with the enemies that were coming at him. So I felt bad, but what are you going to do? Like we would have had to all restart effectively to fix it, you know? It's not practical.
And off you go. Now, I'm assuming most of you watching this probably played at least some of the open beta, in which case you have a pretty clear grasp on how the campaign is structured and how things work in the open world. But if not, though, I'll give you a little rundown. So you get the main story quest. This is going to take you on a guided path through the entire game. We start out in the snowy region known as Fractured Peaks, and then after a short prologue, you will arrive at the main town of Kyovashad. Here, you're going to find the game's major vendors, quest givers, various crafting and upgrade systems. Once you arrive to Kyovashad, the main story quest actually branches out, giving you 3 different choices. And this is what Blizzard was referring to when they said that Diablo 4 had a non-linear campaign. Although, do keep in mind, you have to eventually do all of the main story quests in every zone. So even if you choose to skip past Fractured Peaks to start, you will eventually have to come back anyway. Fact is, in most cases, it's probably just best to stay in Fractured Peaks, then run by foot all the way to the other zones. Really, the only reason I would see to leave Fractured Peaks after the prologue, if A, you have class mechanic quests that are over there, and you want to go get those because, yes, they provide a pretty big boost to power, or B, if there's some like dungeon legendary aspect that you really, really want for your build early on and you can't wait. Otherwise, yes, it's probably best to just stick to Fractured Peaks, play through those campaign missions, and then move on once you finish them. So as you're doing the main story quest, which will have you following through the narrative of the game from one beat to the next, you're also just moving through the open world. And this, hands down, is one of my favorite aspects of Diablo 4. It's got a massive open world map with 0 loading screens as you move between zones, and you'll explore various biomes, checking out different points of interest with a bunch of different things to do. There are 5 distinct regions in the game, each of which have their own theming based off of some real world locations with unique monsters and activities. And this is actually something that I don't want to spoil to you. Like, I'm not going to give you a lot of the specifics of the interesting stuff I see in the open world, mainly because the exploration and discovery of everything while playing here was a big chunk of what I enjoyed. The game world, first of all, is huge. And I mean, it's absolutely massive. I didn't even clear every single area of the map after a full week of playing the game. It's just very, very large, tons of space, and there's a large variety of things to see. As for things to do, well, it is an open world game, and if you've played Fractured Peaks, you know pretty much everything. Just the variety is mixed up a bit. Besides the overworld being full of various types of monsters to smash, it's also consisting of dungeons, events, strongholds, side quests, and collectibles. So you get all this stuff out in the open world to discover and engage with, which you will come across just naturally as you play through the campaign and as it takes you through each of the zones, guiding you from one region to the next. Oh, and also the mounts. These are unlocked via a side quest when you get about halfway through, somewhere around level 35 or 40, I think is when we got it. And when you get the mount, it is a massive help, really, especially since the game and the world is so big. They've got like a basic gallop speed, but also a dash, which will boost your movement temporarily. It's got 3 charges that just constantly refill with time, and every class also has a unique dismount attack. So yeah, the game is really big. There's a lot of activities, and there's plenty of stuff to keep you busy. But remember, the main thing, if you want to progress into endgame, is simply finishing the story. So playing through the entire
Big game. Game big. As you hope. Game is very big. Dude, anybody remember Nintendo's helpline you could call? I never did that. I never, like, that was before my time, but I've heard stories, yeah. I don't like games with camera angles down like this, but this game looks interesting though. The ice, this is like called an isometric view. It's not for everybody, I'll grant you that. I used to think I didn't like it, but honestly, once I started playing some games that do it, I really didn't mind it. I was like, actually, this is fine. Like, it doesn't have to be first or third person for me to enjoy it. Usually it allows you to get much more tactical with your combat systems. So I'm fine with this. I find it sort of an acquired taste in a way.
Our campaign took me around 11 hours.
For modern
I was level
gamers,
43
that is.
when turning in the final quest. But please bear in mind, I was
It was level 43.
campaign took me around 11 hours, and I was level 43 when turning in the final.
Wait, hold on. Let me be very clear.
The game is really big, and there's a lot of activities, and there's plenty of stuff to keep you busy. But remember, the main thing, if you want to progress into endgame, is simply finishing the story. So playing through the entire campaign took me around 11 hours, and I was level 43 when turning in the final quest. But please bear in mind, I was playing at a fairly quick pace, but not as fast as possible, given I knew that the
It only took him 11 hours to get through the campaign? Oh, he was on WT1. That's true. I mean, I guess it's, again, it's not like that we're saying, yeah, there's only 11 hours of content in the game. Like, that's just to get through the campaign, storylines, cutscenes, and stuff that leads you into the end game, but still.
View window was limited, and I only had so much time to play. I was just mostly interested in getting to endgame quickly, just for the sake of seeing it and learning about it and checking out the different systems. So that said, between the campaign and exploration of this huge open world with all the stuff we talked about, I could see it taking many more hours to complete. Like, I could easily see people spending 30, 40, or even 50 hours just doing open world stuff in addition as they're moving throughout the campaign. That is certainly possible. But on the flip side, I could also see people finishing the campaign in way fewer than 11 hours because I wasn't exactly beelining it. I did spend some time doing some side stuff, doing some dungeons, exploration, public events, things like that. So how long it takes you to go through the campaign is totally just going to depend on your playstyle, because the campaign is weaved into the open world, and as we touched on, there is a lot to the open world. I mean, honestly, you could play for 100+ hours before you finish the campaign if you're just also doing all the open world stuff as you move throughout. But once you finish a campaign, it's time for endgame, and this is where, as ARPG and MMO players would say, this is where the real game begins, right? So the first system that you're introduced.
I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, where you can go and engage with the end game or the end boss whenever you want. It's up to you. But still, like 11 hours seems short, especially just because I would assume the main story takes you all over the map. And so I'm baffled that with the world as big as it is, it only takes you 11 hours to get through it. Extra Life said it took him 40, but he is very much a completionist. Yeah, for real. The sacrifice he's making by rushing a game to 11 hours is his gear will be mid. Yeah, but then you shift into the end game. And honestly, if you're one of these ARPG players that's just trying to get to the end game where the real game starts, then I guess I can understand why he might do that. But if he said he didn't feel like he was beelining it, he felt like he was going at a good pace, but he wasn't like trying to rush through it. 11 hours is pretty short. That means that probably some people can get through the main story in like 5 hours. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Once you get to Shattered Peaks, once you get to Shattered Peaks, though, you get 2 main quests at the same time at opposite sides of the map, so it loads up the progression quest pretty quickly from what I can tell. Okay. He's def running from point to point. Oh yeah, no, I mean he's getting the quests and then he's going through and completing them from there, which, I mean, if you just want to get the main story over with and then start grinding the other stuff and all the side quests and things, obviously it didn't stop him from playing the game. He put in like 80 hours or 100 hours or something all told. So he's playing a lot of the game. He just worked through the main campaign quickly.
Is the Tree of Whispers. On its face, it's pretty straightforward. These are rotating objectives that pop up all over the world, spread out between the different zones. So each task that you have will be worth a set number of favors. Once you collect 10 favors, you return to the tree and you collect a reward. Now, when I first heard about this system, I kind of wrote it off because I basically assumed it was just like any side quest, daily quest system, or the bounty system from Diablo 3, right? And yes, in a lot of ways it is, but also, as I was playing, I found myself really enjoying the fact that this system pushed me to revisit old areas, but then also brought me to explore new ones that I hadn't yet seen. And these objectives are also always in these clusters. It essentially takes a few areas within each zone and will give you a grouping of activities in one particular space. So these activities will include completing a dungeon, clearing a cellar, killing a variety of enemies in the area, turning in these collectibles, and then finishing one of those open world events that we discussed. So while the exact activities are constantly changing, their locations and which ones are available are rotating on a regular basis, and there will be multiple clusters up at any given time, the general structure of each grouping of the Tree of Whisper quest is what I just listed. And the harder objectives also reward more favors. So for example, if you clear a cellar, it's worth 1 favor, but if you do a dungeon, it's worth 5, and you just have to reach 10 before you can go collect your reward from the tree. And this was a great way to fill up low-level pieces. It was a great way to level up and get experience. It was a great way to see more of the world. Overall, even though it is just like a daily quest system, just like a bounty system, because the world is so big and because I hadn't ever seen all of it, and because it was a good source of experience and a good source of filling up low-level loot pieces, I really liked engaging with it and constantly going out into the world, doing this cluster of activities, going back to the tree, getting experience, getting loot, then going out to another spot and just continuously doing this over and over again. So the Tree of Whispers is the first and only endgame activity that you can do immediately after clearing the campaign. The rest of it is actually locked behind World Tier 3, which in order to progress to, you have to clear the Capstone Dungeon. So the Capstone Dungeon is the set level activity that basically acts as a barrier to you progressing world tiers. Enemies inside have a hard locked level, which if you are too far below is going to be really difficult. So when I finished the campaign, as mentioned, I was level 43. The Capstone Dungeon to go from World Tier 2 to 3 is set to level 50. Now I tried immediately going in, but I just wasn't doing enough damage and enemies would kill me too quickly. So I spent a few hours doing those Tree of Whisper quests, leveling up, gearing up, and then once I got to level 50, I jumped back into the Capstone. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I think this thing has been a bit oversold in the past as being some massive challenge. In reality, it's just like a slightly longer than normal dungeon run. I mean, there are some cool enemies inside that you fight, but for the most part, it is really straightforward and it just acts as like a level or a gear check. I mean, don't...
Yeah, the balancing is going to be pretty important. I thought that the beta was a little easy. Beta. But that might have just been me. I don't know. Did you guys find it Easy? Like, what do you think? What do you think? Max, I'm about 70 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, just my first temple last night. There's way too much stuff everywhere. You look at in this game, it's not spaced out. That's for sure. I mean, I don't know if it's that it's not spaced out. It's just extremely dense, which I guess is the same thing. But there's just so much in that game. It's wild. It's crazy. The one thing I cannot stand about Tears of the Kingdom, though, oh my God, the whatever they call them, the abilities that you get after completing the big 4 dungeons and assisting each of the places, just like in Breath of the Wild. Oh shoot, what is the name for those? They have an actual name for them. But the fact that you have to walk up to each of their like apparitions and then hit A and then trigger their ability from there is so dumb. And also, am I the only one that thinks that the abilities they give you suck ass? Like the ability for the guy to roll and sages. Yeah, the ability for the guy to roll and break up the rocks, that's cool, I guess. We've used that a few times. The wind blast, I think, is too weak to be super useful. I think it needs to be bigger and better. I keep finding myself wishing that I had the abilities from the first game, you know?
Don't get me wrong, it was like somewhat difficult at times, but there really weren't any interesting surprises or real new mechanics that I noticed compared to any other dungeon run in the game. Just kind of some like tough grouping of enemies at times. Although the boss fight was really cool, like a lot of the other boss fights in Diablo 4, I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely give them that. Speaking of which, I know I haven't really discussed boss fights thus far. For one, we're not going to be revealing them for spoiler's sake, like the names of the campaign bosses, but I will tell you this much, the big ones that are in the campaign, as well as the boss in the capstone dungeon, I thought they were pretty good, really interesting, both in the boss design and mechanic design departments. I just thought many of these were interesting, cool encounters that I really liked. Okay, so once you finish the World Tier 2 capstone dungeon, you then unlock access to World Tier 3, and with that, you gain access to the rest of the endgame, and that is including the Nightmare Dungeons and Hell Tides, as well as when you're introduced to the Champion monsters, which add an extra level of challenge with their new affixes and resistances, and this is when you're going to start seeing sacred and unique items dropping. So sacred items are just like higher item level versions of everything below legendary, whereas the unique items are altogether different. These will drop with set in stone stat types and affixes, which will just change depending on the item level that they drop at. And some of these uniques come with really cool abilities. For example, I found the Ice Heart Pants, which made it so that enemies who died while frozen would have up to a 20% chance to unleash a new Frost Nova, which...
Ice Frost Pants. Don't you just love ARPGs? This is one of the great things about these games, though, is just being able to get that one piece of loot and then get giddy with excitement when you realize, oh, this is crazy. Enemies that die while frozen have an 11 to a 20% chance to unleash a Frost Nova. You just get giddy with excitement. Oh, man. Chris, thank you for that. Are you going to cover Final Fantasy 16? I'd like to be able to. Yeah. I would like to. I don't know like how big it's going to be. I don't know what, like if the audience is going to be interested in it. I honestly have no idea. But I'm interested. I'm very much interested. So I think it looks awesome. Let's look at the monetization real quick, and then we can shift.
Currency that you can buy ranges from costing up to $2 to up to $100. From $2 to $10, every $1 equals 100 currency. And then once you reach that $25 bundle, that's when they start adding those bonus free currencies in addition to the $2,500 that you would have got otherwise. And the point of this, of course, is to try to incentivize you to pony up to spend for that $100 bundle, as that is the one that gives the greatest amount of free currency, or the best value, as it is often called in these cash shops. So the cosmetics that we saw ranged in price from $13 for this Dress to Kill Rogue set, all the way up to $28 for the Wraith Lord Necro set, and $28 appears to be the highest, most expensive cosmetic set that I saw in at least what they showed us.
I can understand why people are like kind of upset about the in-game shop and the monetization and stuff, but honestly, as long as it's cosmetic, it's only visual, it doesn't offer gameplay boosts or perks, I'm not that opposed to it. I know $28 in a $70 game for a skin seems certainly outrageous, but the age-old adage it certainly holds true here. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Problem solved. Problem solved. I get it. It seems outrageous. But there are people who are willing to pay $28 for a skin like this just to look a little different. Might be weird to you, but some people will do it. They'll spend half of the total money they spent on the game just to look a little weird. I'm not saying I understand it. It's weird. People will do it. And they've seen it. People do it in Fortnite and Warzone and I don't know if PUBG has stuff, but like all of these live service games do this. Apex. So it certainly is not that outrageous to a lot of people. Otherwise, they just wouldn't do it. But as long as it's cosmetic, I'm fine. If it starts to affect gameplay, I have a problem.
And there's everything in between, a mix of variety of combinations with different cosmetic slots. Some of them will even include things like emotes and markings for your character. And then there was also this thing called an add-on that you could purchase. One that we saw was the Crypt Hunter add-on.
Yeah, so add-ons, to be clear, this is like what we just saw were sets and bundles in the game using in-game currency that you've purchased for real-world money. These add-ons are purchased for real-world money, like in a DLC shop on Steam or not on Steam, on Blizzard's launcher. So you pay straight cash for it. So you get $8 worth of the premium currency for those in-game bundles and purchases. And then you also get this other stuff. Just a different variation. Maybe some people don't like using the in-game currency. Maybe they'd rather just pay $20 for it. They just shake it up, offer variety.
Which would give you a mount skin, a couple of cosmetics, and then 800 platinum, and that cost $20. So I mean, looking at this, it's pretty much everything that I expected. It's like a regular old cash shop. It doesn't really seem all that surprising. We knew this was going to be in the game. It's, you know, seeing $28 bundles in a game that's $70 at its cheapest, and one that's also going to be selling a season pass in mid-July, so like a month and a half after release. It's a lot of layers of monetization, but, you know, we knew this was coming. This part of the game is not at all surprising. So that is a recap of the game and the systems.
And honestly, I understand why people might not like this. I personally think it's kind of ridiculous to do, but I understand why they do it. I get it. And I just think as long as it's not interfering with the core game, and if the core game's good, what is there really to be upset about? Like, what am I whining about? You're trying to make more money, but the game's really good. Like, okay. You know? Let's see. Are we seeing any pay to win or XP boosts? Not anything that I've heard of. Now, if we saw that, like XP boosts, especially in a game like this with an end game, that would be baffling. Like a Ubisoft style 5% XP boost or something. That would be totally unacceptable. And my hope is that, and I'm sure, people would like explode if they saw that. Oh yeah, by the way, everybody, Richard's right. Everybody like the stream. 141 likes. We just passed 400 people in here. We can do better. We can do it. But as of right now, there's nothing like that in the game. Hopefully it stays that way. But we shall see. Yeah, I would not be surprised if they sneak that in after launch. You never know. You never know. He took my thing. Red flag, red